I'm Brandy Capehart with some tips for a fun and successful student orientation. In this video, I'll be using the Youth Program Coordinator Manual and a copy of the student guidelines provided by Compass USA for our orientations. Now, in the past, I held my student orientation on the same night as my welcome party. I found it really difficult, though, to ask my students to leave their party, go to another room, while I more or less crammed in all of the expectations and guidelines of the program into a very short amount of time. So I decided I would give my student orientations a spot of their own on my calendar. Now, we all know that anything that holds a spot on our calendar has to be fun. So I had to get creative, and so I went to Pinterest, where I found lots of games, lots of fun games, even some cultural games to play and keep my orientations fun. My second challenge was to find a fun place to have an orientation. And because many of our students are high school aged and very curious about American teen life, I decided to go to my local high school. So I reserved a room at the local high school. I went ahead and printed off all of the paperwork ahead of time for my student orientation packets, and then all that was left was to head to Pinterest and pin some fun and plan some fun. And so on to my orientations. My orientations are about 3 hours long. Now, before you freak out, let me explain. Orientations begin with introductions. We play games. We have lunch together. We review the calendar in anticipation of all the fun we're going to experience together. And then I end with that high school tour. So it gives us all something fun to look forward to in the end. Now, it hasn't been hard to find a high school student that is willing and even excited to give tours of their high school. Some of the favorites are visiting the gymnasium, the band room, the trophy cases. Don't forget your camera. There are lots of great pictures to be had in the local high schools. And then again, if you'll visit the front office, they usually have a copy of the yearbook. This is very different from other high schools and culture, so it's really fun to learn the differences in our culture in high school. So in orientations, when we have introductions, I keep the student introductions very brief. Many of them, although we're reminding them constantly to speak English, speak English, speak English, are very insecure about speaking English. They may be learning it, but not speaking it every day, and we can understand that. So I have them introduce themselves, maybe tell how old they are, where they're from, and maybe I'll ask questions like, what are you most excited to see, or what are you hoping to see while you're here or experience while you're in the United States? In turn, I introduce myself. I talk about why I'm passionate about this program, why I do it year after year. I explain that I've spent months interviewing host families to find just the right host family for each student. I also tell them that I visit all the host families to be sure that the environment is safe and that they'll have a great positive experience while they're here. I have the assistant and the escort do exactly the same, introduce themselves and explain their role. It's very important to establish everyone's role in the beginning. One of my secret tips about establishing roles in orientation is I always defer correction to my escort. It saves me a lot. I get to be the fun one. And so all those simple gathering students, if students are talking while someone else is talking, I just look to the escort, and the escort will handle all of that. And usually, because they've established their own relationship, sometimes they have a better cultural understanding. It's well received from the escort. So do yourself a favor and defer all correction over to your escort. Now, on that note, going over the guidelines, my number one goal and kind of rule for my orientations is that I keep everything positive. I choose to see student guidelines not as rules, but as guidelines to create a fun, positive, safe, and memorable experience. So if we present the guidelines not as we have to follow these rules or these are the consequences, but more as the guidelines are set up so that you can have a fun, safe, positive, and memorable experience. That's exactly what we'll get in the end. And so I am positive that you're going to have a great summer, and I look forward to hearing all about it.